The letter was sitting among a pile of mail I had almost tossed aside. Just another white envelope with the blue Fairfield Trust Bank logo printed in thicker. I didn't notice it at first. I was too busy sorting through utility bills and local coupons. Only after finishing my second cup of coffee did I glance at it and feel something odd in my gut. I had no business with Fairfield. Trust Bank still curiosity got the better of when I opened the envelope and read the first few lines. My stomach dropped. Dear Mrs. Whitaker, this is a reminder of your overdue mortgage payment. Froze the letter claimed I owed over $7. Zero for the second payment on a mortgage of $950,000. According to the letter, if I didn't bring the account current within 2 weeks, foreclosure proceedings would begin. It blinked. I reread the line, then again. It didn't make sense. I was 70 years old, a reader. Librarian, a widow for over a decade, the modest cottage on Maplewood Lane where my late husband and I had lived for 40 years had been paid off long ago. Why would I, a quiet woman with no debt, suddenly owe nearly $1 million? I picked up the phone and dialed the number on the letter. After a long wait, a young woman answered. Fairfield Trust, how may I assist you? This is Martha Whitaker, I said, my voice trembling. I received a mortgage statement. There's been a mistake I've never taken. Out a loan from your bank, please. Hold for a moment, Mrs. Whitaker asked. Place me on hold. I stared out the kitchen window past the garden heraldines. Tended so meticulously, everything felt normal, quiet, peaceful, but inside my thing had cracked when the voice came back on the line. It confirmed my fare. According to our records, you took out a 30-year mortgage in March to purchase a property at $118. Lakeside Circle valued at $950. Oh, we have your signed agreement. Passport copy, social security, and tax forms on file. I felt like I was suffocating. Had used my name, my documents, my identity, and I had no idea who, but I was going to find out the moment I hung up the phone. It rang again. Julia, me daughter's name, flashed on the screen, and for a second I considered noting swearing, but I did. Maybe, just maybe, I needed to hear something familiar. Mum, it's Zoe's birthday today. Julia begging, her voice brisk, skipping any greeting. You didn't forget, did you? We're meeting at the Willow, room at 3, and please don't wear that green cardigan. You, the one, it's a restaurant, not your garden. So my granddaughter 12 today hadn't forgotten. I'd already wrapped Asmo's silver bracelet with a star charm, something meaningful and delicatessen thing I thought she might like. I remember, I said, keeping my tone even. But Julia, I received something this morning, a letter from a bank about a mortgage I never signed. Not again, Mom, she sighed. If it's another credit card ad, just throw it away. You don't have to open every piece of junk mail. It's not junk. This is serious. Someone took out a loan in my name, a mortgage for almost $1 million. There was a pause, then a sharp, incredulous laugh. Mom, come on, who on earth would give that kind of loan to a retiree? You must have him under duty. Didn't I spoke to the bank? They have all my personal information, my signature. Think I bought a house. At the lack of there was another silence. Then Julia's voice shifted, too calm, too careful. Mom, are you feeling okay today? Did you take your blood pressure medication? Don't look to me like I'm losing my mind, I said firmly. I know what I read. I know what I heard. This is identity theft. Andy, I'm going to the police. The police? Julia sounded genuinely alarmed. Oh my God. Mom, please don't make a scene. I'll stop by after work. Just don't do anything until I get there, okay? I agreed, but something in her reaction struck a chord deep inside me. She wasn't surprised, was nervous, and that told me more than any letter ever could. By the time I arrived at the Willow Room that afternoon, my mind was spinning with answered questions. The place was all glass and chrome, the kind of restaurant where the portions were small and Thepper's tags large. Dylan was already there with his wife, Candace, and their 2 teenagers. My son barely looked up when I arrived. Mum, he said, his eyes narrowing. Your hair's sticking up again on the left side. Nice to see you too, Dylan, I replied, brushing my hair back and forcing a smile. Candace gave A polite nib the kids mumbled a distracted Heloise glued to their phones. I took the empty seat, wondering not for the first time how I had raised such distant people. Where's Julia? I asked, running late. Dylan said, glancing at his watch. Work things something about the Randall family situation. Julia worked in child protective services. She often spoke about saving children from unstable homes. Thousands times I wondered if she saw her own childhood. As one of those cases happened her later, she arrived flawless, loud, and exactly on cue. Her husband Mark trailed with her, and Zoe the birthday. Girl floated in wearing a dress that looked like it belonged in a fashion catalogram. You came. Zoe said, sounding more surprised than pleased that I wouldn't miss it, sweetheart. I handed her the little gift box. She took it without opening it. Thanks, she said flatly, already turning to show Marilyn, her cousin, something on her phone. I watched as my gift was placed on the table without a second glance. Mom. Julia leaned over and whispered, what exactly did that letter say? You didn't believe me earlier. It whispered back, but it's real. A loan for a house. I didn't buy, and the address listed. It's a new build in Lakeside Circle. Julia stiffened, but quickly recovered. Mom, salad or soup? She asked it aloud, her tone bright, her smile fake. Thirst of lunch passed. In polite tension every now and then I caught Julia and Dylan exchanging glances that said far more than their words when I returned home. I sat down at my computer. It wasn't great with technology, but I could manage a simple search. I typed in address from the letter. 118 Lakeside, a circle conquered up. Came photos of a sprawling modern home with floor-to-ceiling window stone accents and a dock stretching into the lake. It was stunning, and it was purchased in March, the same month Simeon forged my name that evening. I couldn't sleep. I sat by the window, the screen still showing that house. It's glossy. White siding, those gleaming windows reflecting the lake, the house Simeon bought in my name, and then there was Julia's brand new sub parked in my driveway just hours. Earlier she had mentioned trading in her old car. She hadn't mentioned a new house either. It all clicked. Now Julia had always been ambitious, always reaching for something bigger. She knew the system. She worked in it. She had access. She had my documents in. She thought I'd be too slow to confess to ever find out she was wrong the next morning. I pulled out the old city directory and found the name. I was looking for Rowan Gates, held her law specialist. Her card read, protecting your rights when others try to talk of them. I dialed her number, half expecting to be brushed off or placed on a weeks-long wait list. Instead, the receptionist scheduled me for that very afternoon. Rowan's office was located in a modest brick building in downtown Concord. Inside it felt more like a home within a law firm. Plants on every windowsill, sunlight pouring through sheer curtains. Rowan herself stood. When I entered, she was in her 60s, wore a navy suit, and had the steady kind of presence with that made you feel you weren't alone. Ms. Whitaker, she said, shaking my hand firmly. Please sit. Tell me everything I did, from the letter to the phone call tough party to Julia's tight-lipped visiting. Told her about the house, the Ferga signature, and the new sub. When I finished, Rowan tapped her pen lightly. On the desk, what you've described is identity theft, and a pretty sophisticated. What if that complicated by fact that the suspect is your own daughter? I nodded slowly. What happens now? We have 3 options, she said. Report it to the police, file a civil suit, or try to settle privately. And if I do nothing, you risk foreclosure, late fees, lawsuits, and eventually losing your home. I looked out the window, then back at her. Then I guess I said, my voice steadier. Then I expected we'd do something. 3 days later, I got a call from Audrey, my closest friend from my post office days. Sounded out of breath. Martha, you might want to sit down, she said. My niece Paige works part-time at Crystal Grove Catering. Guess whose event is working this Saturday? Didn't respond. Julia's housewarming party, Audrey continued. She reserved Itender, her husband's company named Lakeside Events, but it's your daughter. Paige said it's a full set of cocktails, champagne duo, 40 guests at the house, your house. Technically, she hadn't invited me, not even a phone. Callie thanked Audrey and hung up, and then I called Rowan. She's throwing a party at that house I said this weekend there. Was a pause. Do you know the exact dim and address I do in that case? Rowan said slowly we could arrange. For Thecort Baif to serve her the lawsuit, not us there at the party, yes. It's perfectly legal. The Baif can serve Thinatis anywhere the defendant can be found. And if I want to be there. Rowan hesitated. It will cause a scene. I know, Martha, she said. Gently, are you sure this isn't about revenge? I thought for a moment. No, I want her to see that I'm not invisible old woman. She thinks I am me. Want her to see that I won't bezalincidati. Arrived clear skies, perfect weather for a lakeside celebratione. Stood in front of the mirror in a dark blue dress with a crisp white collarnette understated. I curled my hair and added a touch of lipstick. I didn't look like someone Defeat Teddy looked. Like someone ready to be seen. It took a cab to a small cafe near Lakeside Circle where Rowan waited with the Bafemer Elliot Nash, a tall man in a crisp suit with a calm, capable demeanor. He outlined the plan he would enter as a catering staff member and serve Giuliani notice inside the party. You can't stay outside. Rowan offered, or come in, I'm going in. I said, she deserves talk now. I'm not hiding three of us. Walked the short distance to 118. Lakeside Circle from Thess Street. The house looked like a magazinic over soft lights glowing from inside people and cocktail. Attire mingling on back patio. Laughter echoing faintly rang the bell. A young woman in catering black opened the door. Extra staff? She asked, yes, nodded. I'm with Crystal Grove, and this is the quality inspector. Come in. The house mold of new wood and money music played softly. I recognized at least 20 burrs. Julia was in the center of it all, holding a glass of champagne when she saw me. Her smile froze. Man, and then she saw Mr. Nash, Mrs. Julia Caldwell. He asked evenly, yes, same here, on behalf of Concord District Court. You're being served with a civil suit for fraud and forgery. The room went silent, and for once my daughter had nothing to say. The room stood in stunted silence. Held the legal documents like they were foreign objects, her knuckles turning. White as she clutched the Pagisher champagne glass trembled slight life. Golden liquid rippling with every small shake of her hand. What is this, some kind of joke? Mark, her husband, stepped forward, his voice rising no joke. I said calmly, your wife used my name to take out a mortgage for this house without my knowledge, without my consent. That's ridiculous. Julia snapped at her voice tight with panic. You said you'd help. You gave me permission. Where's the paperwork? Then I asked, where's the power of attorney you claim I signed? Why did you forge my signature instead? Julia's face flushed a deep red mark, looked at her eyebrows raised. It was clear now he hadn't known the full story. Either you've embarrassed yourself, Julia hissed, lowering her voice and made in front of everyone. No, I corrected. Hear you. Embarrassed yourself on just standing up for what's mine. My son Dylan Appert from the side of the room, arms folded. Come on. Mom, you're making a big deal out of something that could have been solved in private. Private, I turned to him. You knew, didn't you? You knew and you said nothing. He shifted uncomfortably, not answering. Julia stepped toward me, voice shaking with anger. Get out right now. Gladly I say, but before I go, I want to see the houses you stole in my name. I think I've earned it at least that much. Mark looked horrified with this. Places in your mother's nominate directly, I replied. It was Bothrow, a shell company set up under Mark's name, Coldwell Holdings. Nice try at hiding the trail. Guests were slowly backing away, murmuring among themselves, avoiding eye contact. Someone near the kitchen picked up a coat. Others headed for the door. Julia was unraveling, fury written all over her face, but I wasn't there to fight. I was there to be hard to anyone listening. I said, let this be a lesson. Never assume someone's too old or too quiet to stand up for themselves. I turned to leave, then paused, and Julia, I added without raising my voice, you've taken enough from me. You won't take my dignity too. And with that, I walked out of the house. She could no longer hide behind the lawsuit. Moved forward quickly. Rowan filed all the necessary paperwork. We had more than enough evidence, a copy of the loan agreement with a clearly forked signature, my medical records proving I was at St. James Clinic. The exact court documents were supposedly signed and payment records, showing that the mortgage had been serviced through Aldwell Holdings, a company set up just months before the purchase that Julia tried to delay hiring a high-priced attorney from the city. Harked, I had given verbal consent that this was a misunderstanding between family members, but the judge wasn't swayed. A woman in her 70s with gray hair pulled into a tight bun. She had seen too much to fall for theatrics. She listened carefully as Rowan presented each document, each timeline, each piece of proof that pointed not to confusion but premeditation off the second hearing. The judge looked straight at Julia and said, "This court does not treat elder financialibus lightly, even when it's committed be family, especially when it's committed be family." She ruled in my favor. The loan was declared void. My name was cleared of any financial responsibility. Julia was ordered to pay $20, zero in moral damages, and the bank, eager to avoid bad publicity, offered an additional settlement of $15,000 for its failure to detect the Fergary house on Lakeside Circle was seized by the bank. Julia and Mark moved into Asmo apartment in the northern part off town. Shortly after Mark filed for divorce, he claimed he'd been kept in Thedrick about most of the financial decisions and didn't want to be dragged into legal scrutiny. She also filed for joint custody of Zoe. As for Dylan, has stopped answering my calls altogether. His wife, Rachel, messaged once just to tell me I was no longer welcome to visit their children. They're too young to be caught up in family scandals, she wrote. I was left alone. No birthday invitations, no holiday calls, no photos off my grandchildren on the fridge end. Yet for the first time in years, I could breathe. There were no more veiled insults at family dinners, no forced smiles, no sense that I had to shrink myself to be taller. Teddy had lost my children, but I had found myself. Respect, and as painful as that truth was, it was better than the lie I had lived for far too long. The lie of excellence was safer than standing tall. The days that followed were too quiet at first. I would still walk past the hall table expecting a voicemail light to blink or glance at my phone, waiting for Zoe's name to pop up, but they didn't call, and I stopped waiting. Audrey, bless her, became my daily companion. She brought over Scoon stage stamp tea and updated me on town gossip one afternoon. She looked at me over her cup and said, "Now that you fought for your dignity, what are you going to do with it?" I laughed, unsure. I don't know. I've lived my whole life for other people first. Harder than the kids to meadow, live for yourself. I hesitated, unsure how to do that after 70 years, so Audrey made a plan. She signed us both up for a computer literacy course at Beck Community Center twice a week. We learned how to use spreadsheets, write emails, and navigate social media. It wasn't easy, but it was hours. And then one evening, Audrey brought out a travel brochure of us, she said, tapping a glossy Fatoof gondola gliding down narrow Canal CU. "Once told me you and Harold always wanted to go. That was a long time ago." I said, "Doesn't mean it's too late." She was right, thanks to the compensation from court, and for once, no children's offending my savings. I booked tickets 2 weeks in Italy with my best friend. It wouldn't erase what happened, but it would be a beginning, a step toward healing. I didn't know if Zoe would ever understand what happened, or if Dylan and Julia would ever speak to him again. Maybe one day, maybe not. But I no longer defined my worth by their approval. I was still a mother, but more than that, I was a woman who had taken back her voice, her name, her power, and that would carry me forward to Venice, to freedom, to the life I finally chose for myself. Sometimes the people who hurt us most are the ones we once lived for, and standing up to them doesn't mean you failed as a parent. It means you've definitely chosen yourself. Martha's story is a reminder that dignity has no age limit, and justice doesn't always come with applause, but when it does come, it's worth everything. If this story moved you or reminded you of your own strength, let us know in the comments. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. And don't forget to like and subscribe, because every voice matters and every story deserves to be heard.